You won't believe. Dongju was studying in the library when the boy's ghost reappeared. She fled like a frightened bunny, but was promptly hit by a flying baseball. She had to turn to the priest, who advised returning to the hospital for a solution. Dongju refused, and immediately after leaving the church, she took a dramatic fall. In her wheelchair, Dongju told the priest her luck had worsened since meeting the boy. The priest advised returning to the start to find answers. Reluctantly, Dongju went back to the hospital. That day, she happily went to meet her boyfriend, but received a message from a delivery boy, "Let's break up." It was Mr. Sunsun's request. The absurd reason, he refused to hold her hands that touched the dead. The guy left, but Dongju chased, gave him 1,000 yuan, and kicked him. Next day, after Dongju helped the grandma fulfill her wish, the wind chimes on the roof swayed, and the number on the sign changed from 21 to 20. She realized she might live normally after fulfilling 20 wishes. In 48 hours, had become a dad, yet the funeral displayed his wife's photo and their unborn baby's ultrasound. Days ago, they were a happy, envied family of 3. They decided to name their unborn baby Climbing. After lunch, the wife craved apples, so the husband left for the supermarket, bidding farewell. But he hadn't been gone long when the wife heard the door open. Thinking her husband forgot something, she turned around only to be stunned. Instinctively, she protected her unborn baby, yet tragedy struck. The case swiftly made headlines, leaving witnesses furious and sympathetic. Upon learning that the pregnant woman craved apples before this incident, crowds showed up with apples to show their sympathy. Since his wife and child died, he stayed at the funeral hall, not drinking a drop. Dongju used her powers to fulfill the deceased's wishes. Her hand touched the corpse, awakening its spirit. She, unaware of her death, admired the warm surroundings. She didn't realize she was dead until Dongju revealed the harsh truth. Instead of fear, she worried about her unborn baby. She pleaded with Dongju to help her deliver the baby, but Dongju felt powerless to do so. Suddenly, she recalled her husband and borrowed Dongju's phone to call him, but couldn't unlock it as a spirit. In desperation, she had to rely on Dongju to help her dial the number, but it went unanswered, plunging her deeper into despair. Meanwhile, the curator asked the errand boy to deliver lunch to Dongju. At the morgue door, he suddenly heard voices inside. "Sister, my husband will definitely follow me to the grave." "Well, then he'll go die." Dongju was stunned. She didn't expect the deceased to spring back to life. The errand boy saw Dongju talking to the corpse and thought she had a strange hobby, scaring him into a quick exit. Dongju hurried after him, but the boy clearly doubted such powers existed. The curator rushed over and informed them that the deceased's husband was missing and urged them to search. Dongju immediately returned to the morgue, hoping to wake the spirit again to ask about her husband's whereabouts. But this time, there was no response at all. They spent the whole day searching without a clue to the woman's husband. At dinner, Dongju was delighted yet puzzled by Climbing's leg. The boy arrived, saw her, and left in disdain. To her surprise, Dongju caught up and threw all the blame at him. She proclaimed if he hadn't barged in, she would have heard the rest of what the deceased had to say about Climbing. The boy thought she was making a fuss, and their argument escalated. The next day, Dongju received a call from the curator. He warned her if the owner couldn't be found soon, they'd have to hold a funeral without mourners. But Dongju was convinced that the deceased's husband would return. Today is the child's scheduled birth date. The delivery boy coincidentally heard a broadcast about the couple's past. The broadcast mentioned their first kiss was on a climbing bridge, which is why they named their child's Climbing. When the boy learned the baby's nickname was genuinely Climbing, he finally believed Dongju's words from last night. Just as he pondered their story, a realization hit him. Meanwhile, on a bridge, the husband had made up his mind to follow his wife, and in his mind, there was nothing left to cling to in this world. In a critical moment, the boy suddenly embraced her tightly while the husband yearned. He struggled desperately to free himself, until the boy mentioned a letter from his wife, which calmed him down gradually. Afterwards, the boy gently carried her down from the bridge. Despite never having lost a loved one, he seemed to grasp everything from the man's face. The reason the wife's letter was broadcasted was old Dongju's idea, aiming to stop him from doing something foolish when he heard it. She hoped the man would abandon extreme thoughts upon hearing the letter. And so, he returned to the funeral. To fulfill his wife's apple craving, he juiced the apples with his hands and brought the juice to his wife's body. Meanwhile, the police announced they had captured the murderer, who was sentenced to life for murder and robbery. Times L pound omat v plus or minus pound au 3 omat until the letter 2 bd cyrillic letter 4 abc cedilla acute u omat not sign times omat cedilla plus or minus e circumflex small cut 10 pound copyright pound omat o stroke da o acute omat ai plus or minus I cute poundness and letter 2253 y cute times omat cedilla O acute A tilde acute U acute ten direct reflex a quarter W O graviumat amat U acute equal letter 773 is circumflex amat letter 3CA. Pant copyright. The man suddenly realized he might have died, as had just been in a serious car crash while driving his taxi. But when he came to, he was standing intact in the funeral home. Upon learning Donju could see him, he pleaded with her to save him. He still had many things left undone. Donju admitted she couldn't help too much, but she could help him fulfill one last wish. The old man's eyes lit up, but then dimmed again. He felt guilty for not being a good father, having gone abroad 20 years ago to earn more money. He had left his son in his brother's care for 3 months, but his brother refused until he handed over all his money. However, when he said goodbye to his son, the boy clung to him desperately. Finally, he left reluctantly, a bad dad in others' eyes. Upon his return, his son was gone under his uncle's care. In the past 20 years, he had scoured every corner of South Korea, yet he still hadn't found his son.